You're watching the Illusionist Interrogations with the travesty starring Franz Harary.
Hey, welcome to the show. My name is The Travesty, and today we're going to be talking a bit about our next guest. He is a visionary who's coined the term mega magic to describe his electrifying brand of grand illusion. He has brought magic to live concerts for artists such as Michael and Janet Jackson, Usher, Justin Timberlake, Cher, Missy Elliott, and Justin Bieber, among countless others. His act is known worldwide, and the best way for me to show you is just by rolling a clip. Now!
His shows are designed to shock and confuse with large-scale optical illusions that leave thousands of fans in awe. Meet Franz Harary. As a master of spectacle, his craft has been likened to counterpart David Copperfield, but his work may have arguably been seen by more people. Creating illusions for concerts around the world, he's worked with throngs of A-list stars like Missy Elliott,
This is my man, Franz.
Michael Jackson, and Usher. Today, after almost 3 decades in the game, his illusions keep growing, keeping his multi-million-dollar productions and brand of magic constantly in demand.
It's magic time.
Whatever you do magically needs to mean something to the audience. Even though I'm distorting reality to my viewer, it's very real.
1, 2, 3.
Put your hands together for Franz Harary. Franz.
I can put I can wave because I'm holding the phone with the other hand.
Yeah.
But in spirit, I was right there applauding for myself. So,
Franz, how is this pandemic treating you?
oh my gosh, it's thank God for Facebook. It gives me a reason to get out of bed. It's so many dynamics. Where to even begin? It was really great for the first month because I thought this is nice. This is the first time I've had a vacation in my entire life. And then that got kind of old. And now I'm just ready for it to be done. But I've got this Facebook show, which you should all go to my Facebook fan page, Franz Harary. There you go. And that's giving me something. At the same time, I've got these productions running in China that I've been directing and producing remotely, and we can talk about that. So yeah, I've sort of found an equilibrium, but I'm ready for it to be done. How about yourself? What are you doing? You're doing this, right?
Yeah, I'm doing this.
Right.
Every Friday. So to get this
Is it
thing...
Friday already? That happened fast.
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
It's quick.
Yeah,
So-
and it's been an amazing week, huh?
Yeah.
Think back to Thursday, Wednesday. Those were some days. Huh?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Who'd have thought that thing on Thursday happened?
Wow. A thing with the guy at the place? Wow.
Uh-huh. So we're going to rewind all the way back to when you were a child. How'd you get into magic?
It's pretty boring. It's I like all of us. I got a magic kit for my birthday. I was 13 years old, and I was fascinated with not how the tricks work, but why they work. And in retrospect, I guess I was amazed at the psychology and how strong psychology could be. How I, at 13 years old, could be fooling my parents and my teachers. And I thought there's a lot of power here. So I found myself dissecting not even just the methods, but really the principles behind the methods, the psychology behind the methods. And very quickly I started inventing my own. And then it kind of grew. And then, of course, Doug Henning, if you remember him, you're a little bit young for Doug Henning.
I know who
But
it
he
is.
was on television. And so I wanted to be him. And then it just kind of bumped from there. But that initial start was discovering that power that was somehow magically contained inside this Bill Bixby magic set is actually what it was. So, yeah.
Do you remember what some of your first magic books were?
Interestingly, I haven't read, this sounds really dumb, but I haven't read a lot of books at all. I'm dyslexic, so I can read, but I don't enjoy reading. So the only magic book that I ever read was the Harbin book. And that wasn't really until I was much older. Stupidly, I mean, I I don't enjoy reading. So everything that I've done magically has been a lot of experimentation, a lot of testing, a lot of failures. And in retrospect, I probably should have read. I probably should watch a lot more magic, but I also don't want to be influenced. Even right now, like I've never subscribed to Genie or Magic or any of the magazines because I never wanted to be influenced by others.
Yeah.
But the flip side of that is every once in a while I find myself reinventing the wheel. You know, I'll come up with something and someone will say, "Oh, that's so and so's." And say, "Oh my gosh!" So that's the trade-off. But in the end, I think I'm happy having not been exposed to a whole lot of other people's magic. Even today, you know, I mean, I live 7 minutes from the Magic Castle, and I go maybe once a year. You know, I used to go more, but yeah. Anyway.
All right. Do you remember when your first official show was?
I was also 13 years old. These are good questions. I was 13 years old, and I did a birthday party for a friend of the family's. The kid was probably 7 or 8 years old. I was paid $5 to do the show,
Oh, what a deal.
which back in those days would be the same as about $2,000. No. No, I was paid $5, but I also remember it cost me about $30 to do the show because I had to pay for dry ice and for flash paper and flash powder and all these other expenses. And that has actually remained a business model of mine to this day. I always try to spend 6 times as much as I actually make on the show. So, yeah, I remember that, sure. It was Mrs. Ritchie's son's birthday party.
Wow. Do you remember what tricks you did specifically?
Well, again, I was really right from the start. I wanted to do my own stuff. So it's stuff that I invented. I did kind of my own version of a modern cabinet, I guess. I made it out of, and I had to spend money on materials.
Yep.
So I made this modern cabinet, which if you're not an illusionist, it's a kind of vanish appearance thing out of an old refrigerator box, cardboard box. But I had to cover it in, what do you call, like the plastic wallpaper. So I had to pay for the wallpaper and I had to pay for the glue to make it all nice and everything. I did that. I did a bag escape from a giant laundry bag that I got from my mom, a rope trick. And I don't remember the rest. Probably stuff from that magic kit, you know. Yeah. But my big moments, I remember I had a big entrance because I had the dry ice and I had the flash pots that have to go poof, poof in this kid's basement. So I'm in this base. By the way, let me tell you, I have never talked to anybody about this. I've done, I'm going to say 1,000 interviews in my life. I have never told anybody about this first party. So I'm in the basement of Mrs. Ritchie in Ann Arbor, Michigan with her 7-year-old son. And in the basement, I've got dry ice on the floor and I got my friends operating everything. And I've got flash pots. And of course, when they go poof, you're in the basement. So they hit the ceiling. And now for the next 10 minutes, we were all breathing the smoke left over from the magnesium powder. But I looked pretty cool walking out and appearing. So it's a trade-off, you know.
Was there anything you learned from that show?
That it was a lot of fun, and I wanted to do a lot more of that.
What was the show?
Now remember, you're 28 years old.
Yes.
For you, 13 was 15 years ago.
Yeah.
For me, 13 was 45 years ago. So it's you're asking me to really think back and tap into that long-term memory there, you know?
Well, we'll try to go forward a little bit.
Right, just a little bit.
When do you think your first show was that was like your breakthrough show that you knew this is what you're doing the rest of your life?
Oh, that was it. This is Richie's birthday party. Oh, okay. Absolutely. I knew right there. This is it. This is my future. No, in truthfulness, I went to school as a musician. I went to school on a music scholarship, University of Michigan and Eastern Michigan University. Never graduated, and we can talk about that. But while I was going to school, I was designing magic. So I had, at my resource, I had the University of Michigan marching band and the opera and the theater department. So I convinced all these departments into letting me do magic for them, and I started experimenting. And so I did like the Rose Bowl, halftime of the Rose Bowl. So I, by necessity, figured out how to do large illusions outdoors for a stadium audience that doesn't want to see you. They do not want to see magic. They're there to see football. In the daylight, surrounded. So those are some pretty hardcore conditions. And when I was starting out, I didn't realize that that was not normal. I just knew I had to solve those problems. Yeah. So I came up with a lot of methods that I'm even still using today to this day. And as I was going to school, is a long answer. So as I was going to school, studying music, studying voice on the scholarship, I was doing magic for all these other groups. 1984, Michael Jackson, if you remember Michael Jackson, who was a pop star a number of years back.
He had a few songs.
Yeah. He did well for himself. Yeah, he announced the Victory Tour. At the same time, he burned his hair on a Pepsi commercial. So they said the name of his attorney on television. So I call the attorney and I say, my name is Franz Harary. I'm 20 years old. I'm a magician. I can do magic for stadiums, outdoors, in the sun. I want to do magic for the show. So I sent him a video of me making a car appear, which is a method that, I mean, I still do it and it's been ripped off all over the world. But that video of making an automobile appear got me that gig. And then after, and I never finished school. I did 4 years of what would have been a 5-year degree. I never finished. I moved out to LA. I became Michael's magician. And then that was really when I realized, okay, I'm not going to Broadway. I'm not going to New York. I'm not going to be a singer. I am a magician. I am a magic designer. This is what I do. And I moved to LA and just went to, balls out, so to speak. Yeah.
I mean, I would have quit school for that too.
Right. Oh, but here's the lesson. Even though I never finished school, last year, right before COVID started, the university gave me an honorary master's of fine arts, I think.
That's great.
And there was supposed to be a hoop-de-doo ceremony, and then COVID. So they said, well, we can do it on Zoom. And I go, no. Let's wait till it's all done. Because I want to go there. I want the pigs on a blanket and all the hors d'oeuvres and the whole thing. And so that'll be early on my list when this is all done,
Yeah. So since we're talking about COVID, is there any new skills you've learned because this happened?
I have learned no, but I've met a lot of magicians. Oh yes, I have learned how to pump gas without touching anything, and I've learned how to go through life without touching anything or anyone. So that's a biggie. But because of this Facebook show that I'm doing, it started out with I started in March, and I thought I was going to do like 10 shows, 15 shows, talking to my friends. And it just kept going. And now, as I said, we're into the beyond show number 80. And I've long passed all of my friends. So now I'm talking to people that I didn't know before. And so I'm meeting a lot of magicians that I'd known of, or might have crossed paths, at a convention or something. But I really never got to talk to them. I never spent any time with them. And so really for the first time in my career, I am getting to know my contemporaries and a lot of other magicians. So it's put me deeper into our little magic community than I've ever been before. So I got that from COVID, Yeah. And also I learned how to use the washing machine, so that's pretty good. Yeah.
That's always a good skill. So how many countries have you performed in?
I have no idea. I would say a shitload. That's
works.
A unit of measure, right? Yeah.
Does the atmosphere change with the different types of crowds? Does let's say Russia react differently than China?
It goes beyond that. It's the culture. That's a big fat question, actually. And to answer it, we need to go back to what is magic, and magic is and has always been a looking glass to the hopes and dreams of the culture that produced it. So if you look, for example, in Chinese magic, traditional Chinese magic, they're making rice appear, right? They're making fish appear. They're making food appear.
Yeah.
Because for so many millennia, they're starving, right? You go to Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Malaysia, and their magic it's the debus. It's about overcoming fear, overcoming pain. They're sticking rods into their skin and their mouths, and it's all about overcoming the demons and the fear of mutilation, whatever, because that's what they lived with for so long. They're right on the Pacific Rim, so it's volcanoes and it's earthquakes. I mean, that was the life. You look at us as Americans. I presume you're American, and we are capitalist pigs. So you go to Vegas, and including myself, we're making cars appear, boats appear, girls appear. It's all reflecting a capitalist society. So to go back to the original question, every country you go to, before you can be successful in that country, you need to understand the culture, and you need to understand what drives that culture, and then how you as an artist, as a magician, can tap into that. I've done a lot of work in the Middle East, Abu Dhabi, Bahrain, Dubai, and there magic is real. So in the last few years, shows like the Illusionists have been there, but when I was there starting 20 years ago, 25 years ago, it's a different story, so we had to be very careful when we went into these countries to let the audience and the market know that what I was doing is not real. And even still then, I remember we were in Abu Dhabi, and I got a call in my hotel room from a woman that was frantic. And she said in her, my bad Arabic accent, she says, "Mr. Harary, you must help me. My husband, he has been put under a spell by a woman, and this woman has put him under a spell, and he has left me, and he has left his children. And please, we must use your magic to release this spell and bring my husband back to his home." And so she believed that I was real, and I've had many cases like that, especially in the Middle East. People, sick kids coming up and say, "Please heal me." So it's a tough position to be in sometimes, but you realize that as a magician, as an artist, we are in a unique position to give people hope. And so my message has always been, look, I'm not special. I'm not Superman. If anything, I'm Iron Man. Everything I do is tech. It's not real. But if I can do this, you can do this. We are the same. And so you try to empower them to take care of their own lives. And again, that's what I'm saying. This question is a big fat question, So it's every culture you go to, magic has a different definition. In China today, magic is not an art form. It's a puzzle. So you go to see a magic show to figure out how does the trick work. And it's a challenge. And so the whole show, you see guys whispering to their girlfriends. You see the guys doing this. So it's all about, look how cool I am. I figured out how the American is doing these puzzles, these tricks. That's magic in China. You go to Europe, magic is an art form. Now it's Luis de Matos in a whole different world, So I guess I'll cut it off at that, but I'll say that your question is easily a 2-hour lecture.
Oh, man.
But I'll leave it at that right there.
All right. What's your favorite country to perform in?
Korea. No question.
Okay.
Korean audiences go crazy. They literally get on the chairs screaming and dancing and singing along. It's the funnest audiences in the world. No question.
What was the most impactful magic trick that you've seen by another performer as a kid and recently?
As a kid, Doug Henning. Although I don't remember what the trick was that I saw. I don't remember what the trick was, but I studied the album. You remember the magic show? The Broadway
I have
show?
the record.
There you go. That's it. So I studied that album, the back of the album. There's 5 pictures on it. And I became obsessed. I didn't know what the routines were or what it was, but I imagined it in my mind. And that was very influential. So in a way, it's the back of that album was really, really powerful to me. And then in present times, man, that's a really freaking good question too. You know, I was just talking to a buddy of mine, Lu Chen. He's a magician, Taiwanese magician. And everything that he does is very organic, very to the point, very motivated. And I like the fact that he does things that feel so natural, you know? So I think a lot of his stuff is great. I love Topaz. You know Topaz from Germany? Oh my gosh, Topaz is just great. All these guys are good friends of mine, so I may be a little bit partial. But I don't know that there's a single trick, but I think it is their way of being and their way of presenting magic and approaching it as, again, not just as a craft, but as an art form. You know, understanding that what they do has got to not only communicate who they are, but it's got to affect an audience, hopefully for the good.
On that note, what is the best magic show you've seen, and worst, if you want to answer?
I can't tell you the worst. Come on.
You don't have to answer that part.
It's instant. I say, boom, instant. Immediately I know what it is. But no. I'll tell you after the show.
Okay.
The best magic show. Well, the promoter in me would have to say mine, of course. But I don't know. You know, back to Topaz, and that's the funnest, I would say. You know, I don't know. What's the best flavor? What's the best color?
Green.
You know, green. Oh, was it?
Green.
Oh,
Yes.
oh, really? Oh, I can see. Yeah.
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
it is, isn't it?
I
Yeah.
always say green is every color is just a different shade of green.
That's right. You know, green used to be blue. Green didn't exist. If you go back thousands of years, there was black, white, and red, and everything was a version of red. And then blue came along. Actually, no, I got it backwards. Green came along. So blue didn't exist. Blue was a version of green. So I remember part of this, but kind of screwed up the key. Oh well.
All right. So what would be the best and worst thing that's ever happened to you or an assistant on stage?
The best thing? There are so many ways to approach that, you know? So many ways. I mean, I've had gratuitous sex on stage, so that's pretty good. But I don't know that that's the best. You know, the best thing is it's any time you experience an audience. Oh, really? There we are. Anytime you experience an audience, and even better, a big audience, going crazy in reaction to an effect that you weren't sure if it's going to work or not. So, like yourself, everything I do is my own. I'm kind of fanatic about that. So often, everything I do is new even to me, which means you're not sure if it's going to work. So when you do it and it's successful and they go nuts, that's it. That's the greatest freaking feeling in the world. Worst feeling ever, high school. I was 16 years old, Pioneer High School, Ann Arbor, Michigan.
I feel like that's a non-magician story too.
Yes. And I was doing the school talent show, and I'd just gotten into magic. I'd been into magic for like 3 years. So by now I had declared to the world that I am an illusionist. So I built a thin model sawing in half, which is a mistake because it wasn't my own, but I went against my better judgment and I built it. And so I'm doing it. And my high school was big. So this was an audience of about 2,500 kids. So I'm doing the show, and the girl gets into the box, and I cut her in half and put her back together, and she gets out of the box. And as I'm taking my bow, the flap on the bottom half of the two boxes open, and you see the fake legs, Ryan, right there. And I will, to this day, remember the sound of 2,500 high school kids making this sound. Oh,
man.
that sound right there. Oh my gosh. It was like a nail into my heart. So I had to do one more show, and I thought, I'm never getting up on that stage again. That's it. I'm done. I'm just going to go back to music. That's going to be me. But my friends convinced me. My teachers convinced me. So, okay, doing it one more time. Getting up there, doing it one more time the next day. This time, girl gets into the box. Remember, I built this by myself. Girl gets into the box, cut her in half, separate the two boxes, but the front half, where she's all crunched up inside, the legs of this box, the table, are not strong enough to hold her. So the whole table falls to the ground with her inside it. She's still stuck inside, so luckily she didn't pop out of it. But now I couldn't put her back together. So I had to wheel off the feet, and then me and my buddy came on stage and picked up the front half and carried her off stage. So that was pretty bad. And I will say, since then, I've had my share of bad things happen. But I think the first real onstage abortion, those are the ones that stay with you, I believe.
Have you ever had an audience member try to ruin something?
Well, yeah, of course. And again, it depends on where you are. If you're in China, Chinese audiences they aggressively try to figure out the secret. So it's not they're intentionally trying to ruin something, but they will do everything they can to try to bust the method, And I think it's just part of the business, As you gain some success, it happens less. So it happens in the beginning of your career, because there comes a point where your whatever celebrity you have intimidates people. And so that stops. But certainly as you're building up your career, as you're going up that ladder, that's when you get a lot of it. And I know that I'm preaching to the choir, because I'm guessing it's happening to you right now,
Yeah, a little bit.
Little bit.
So, out of all your accomplishments, if only one happened to you, which would you want it to be?
If only one happened to me?
Only one.
That's I'm going to say that's a weird question. I
try.
think you need to be a little bit more specific. Out of the accomplishments that I have done.
Actually, here, we'll go this way.
Professionally?
Out of all the live concerts that you've worked on, which one would be your favorite?
Okay. That's an easier question. Again, when you're talking to somebody
I
like
saw your
me,
list.
I've done thousands and thousands of projects, and they're all different, 20 years ago, I did a live special for Japanese television, and I took major, major risks, that in retrospect, I can't believe I did it, because I was gambling millions of dollars of other people's money. But one of the things I did a teleportation of a Japanese pop star from Tokyo to Los Angeles. And I'm not going to give away the methods, because it's that freaking cool. But I will tell you, there were no twins. It really was this one pop star. At the beginning of the illusion, he really was in Tokyo. And at the end of the illusion, he really was in Los Angeles. So it really was, the illusion was a distortion of time. But watching it, it just looked, and I didn't know if it's going to work or not. So, and we had to charter planes and a ridiculous amount of tech. And all the time, I wasn't sure if it's going to work, but it did. And it remains the most sophisticated thing that I've ever done, logistically. And because of that, I think that's maybe what I'm most proud of.
All right.
Yeah, it's a tough question. How about you? At your ripe 28 years of age, what are you most proud of right now? Besides this moment, besides right now, what are you most proud of?
I was killed on stage by Ed Alonzo on Masters of Illusion.
I remember that. Now, was that with the sword cabinet?
Rack Illusion, it was all swords.
Where at the end of it, by accident, it whacks open, and that's great. Yeah. So, Ed, I know you're watching this, and I also understand you're not doing Travis's show, but you need to do my show and Travis's show. In fact, do Travis's show first, then do my show, and you'll feel better about yourself. Right? Would you agree?
Yeah.
All right. And Ed, if you're not watching this, but Ed Alonzo, then email him and tell him he's a boob for not doing my show.
At Ed Alonso, no.
That's it. You can find him. Yeah.
Oh man. So how did you come up with your persona? Did it evolve over time, or is it just extended version of you?
God, I sound so old as I say this, but it changes. You know, it changes with time. When I started in high school, I wanted to be Doug Henning, you know, and then I got this break with Michael Jackson, and so now I'm suddenly dumped deep into the music industry. And in 1987, I decided that I'm going to put together my own show using everything that I'd learned from Michael, you know, light, sound, video production, staging, choreography. So I put together a show that looks like a rock concert, which, by the way, is still being done. It's being copied by a lot of guys out there. If you go to Vegas, there are guys still using metal trussing and exposed parkans. So I started something that it's got a life bigger than me. So for many years, I was this rock and roll kind of Bon Jovi-esque guy, you know, and then you kind of grow. And as time goes by, I flip and I become less heavy metal magician. And then I sort of became the Discovery Channel magician, you know, as my personal interests kind of shifted over. And then it moved over. Then for a while I was into anime. So the whole show, including myself, looked like anime. This was about 20 years ago. And so I would say as one changes and one's personality changes in life, one's art, which is a reflection of one's personality, changes with them. And that's what's happened to me. And today, what I am on stage is just a bump away from what you're looking at right now, which is pretty much, you know, unfiltered here. It's I really am a cross between Doc Brown, Willy Wonka, and Iron Man. A little bit of Tom Hanks in there, maybe. You know, at least that's what I'm imagining. Which, by the way, this is something that you can do yourself, because a lot of magicians, as they're starting, they haven't figured out who they are on stage. They just go out there and they just do it. And if you ask them, "Who are you?" they can't answer. So an easy question, and I invite you to try this with other guests, is ask them, on stage, your character, if you were 3 people, who would you be? For me, Willy Wonka, Doc Brown, Iron Man. That's me. Now I ask you, if you were 3 people combined on stage, who are you?
Frankenstein, Willy Wonka, and Beetlejuice.
Beautiful. You've thought about this.
I kind of have.
That's great. You'll be surprised how many people have not thought about it, you know? And it's really the first step, because until you know who you are, you don't know how you would attack any sort of problem or situation on stage. You need to know who you are in order to know how to be, you know, and then everything follows from there.
Just because I'm curious on this, you've done stuff with tanks, airplanes, and a space shuttle. What was the most difficult thing to pull off, or to use?
Taj Mahal.
Oh,
Taj Mahal, the Taj Mahal, because it's this national icon, and they didn't want. I had to. Boy, this sounds so freaking egotistical. I had pretty substantial celebrity in India, so I had access to the Taj Mahal, but they just didn't like what I was doing, and they knew that it was an illusion. They knew it wasn't real, but they still thought that this is just not good. So we had to do everything covertly. It was basically guerrilla. You know, we shot everything on small little cameras. We went in there like a bunch of tourists, and I made the Taj Mahal disappear. So that was the illusion. And it was all, you know, like a lot of my bigger stuff, it's an illusion of perspective and of the manipulation of space and space relationship, right? So we had to orchestrate all of that, all the time appearing to be just a group of tourists hanging out at the Taj. So once we got it, Then we showed it to the government and we got permission, but we were not going to get permission to do it. So we just kind of did it and risked going to prison, which would have sucked to be in prison.
You could have sent that through an email far, far away.
Yes. At the same, but every one of these has a different story. When I did the space shuttle, I thought, oh, this is going to be funny. When I did the site survey of the shuttle, I had bolts. I had a metal bolt that I had palmed in my hand. And so I walked up to the shuttle. This is at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. And I play around with the landing gear and I have the bolt fall out of my hands. And I pick it up and I go, oh, is this from something? Thinking I'm just going to be the funniest damn thing. But all of the NASA guys had a meltdown and they did not think it was funny at all. It was not received well. And we almost lost permission for it. So that was just me being stupid,
I would have waited till the end on that one.
Right.
So what's something you did as an amateur that you would never do now? Pull a bolt out of a NASA? No.
The really stupid things I did as a professional, it's weird. I was just talking to my buddy Joaquin Ayala about this. It's weird what we do when we know that there is a television camera running, and it can't be a home video camera. It's got to be TV. It's when that's going, we just become idiots. And I was just, during this lockdown, I'm going through thousands of videotapes in my attic and I'm digitizing all this stuff. And I saw something that I did for the Discovery Channel like 20 years ago, where I disappear. I got into a box and the box goes up and it blows up and I disappear. And I reappear in a helicopter that comes flying in from the distance. So I remember being in the I'm afraid of heights. I am big time afraid of heights. I remember being in the helicopter, looking down. I was 400 feet in the air, maybe 500 feet. So way the hell up there, looking down at that little tiny black camera thinking, all right, we're rolling and this is happening. So I'm going to be cool. So I grabbed onto this plastic strap that was intended for people when they're sitting in the chopper. You hold on a little strap like you might have in your car. I grabbed it onto this little plastic strap and I hung outside the helicopter, almost like a James Bond kind of thing. And as I'm hanging there, like, 400 feet in the air, I realized I didn't look at this plastic strap. I don't know what's holding this thing up. Has it been riveted? Has it been glued? What's going on here? But screw it. I'm doing it. I'm here. I'm looking cool. And there's that little camera down there. And I'm committed. Stuff like that. And I've had many of those. And as stupid as it is, you just keep doing it. It's dumb. It's in us. It's what you do for the art, for the ego.
Have you ever gotten seriously hurt?
I did a couple times. I've again, these are all long stories, but I'll try to compress them. So I did this illusion for Michael Jackson for the last concert he ever did, the History Tour. And the illusion is a bunch of spikes. He gets into this kind of casket thing, and the casket closed around him. And then like 50 spikes that are like 4 feet, 5 feet long get shoved through the casket. Casket blows open and fire, and he disappears. So when it's all done, he gives it to me. He goes, "Here, Franz, keep it, put it into your own show, keep our magic alive." So I kept it and I did it in my show for years. So when he did it, we had many, many safeties, double and triple and quadruple redundancies to make sure that nothing can go wrong. So when he'd go inside, he'd have to pull a switch that meant he knew we were then he'd slide into the low chamber and he would have to hit another toggle and then push it out another bolt. And then the final fail safe was he would stick his finger out a hole that only technicians could see, and we knew that he was free and clear and the spikes could be shoved through. Well, I ended up doing it myself for years. And the more I did it, the more sloppy I got, and I started bypassing all of the safeties. And until finally, sure, one day it happened. I was in the casket. I slid down into the low chamber, because I'm assuming this is mostly magicians watching this. So I slid down into the low chamber, but I didn't I didn't use any of the signals, any of the redundancies. So for whatever reason, this one particular show, my hand was up in the air a little longer than it should have been.
Oh,
So
man.
my guys, not knowing that, took these 50 spikes, each one is about 3/4 of an inch in diameter, and rammed it through the thing and through my hand. So it goes into my palm, and then it bumps up against the back, and they can't get it all the way through. So they pull it back again and get a running start and do it again. Thunk, thunk. And it goes through my hand, and I'm screaming. I pull it out, now pull it out. And blood is dripping down my arms and onto my face. And so they pull it out, and now I don't have the use of my left hand, and so I cannot close the metal shield. It's like a heat shield that protects all of the flash paper and all the pyro crap from falling onto me. And I thought, oh God, all right, here it goes, because there's nothing I can do. So now I'm lying in a puddle of blood inside this low chamber, getting dizzy. And the next thing I know, all right, this is it. And the pyro goes, and I look up and I see this fantastic explosion of fire and sparks. And my first thought was, wow, that looks pretty cool. From this angle, no one has ever seen that. And then, of course, right after that, all of the soot and garbage and embers fall onto my face. So now I'm covered in sweat and blood and embers. And yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, and then I had to go to a hospital in Bahrain, in the United Arab Emirates.
Moral of the story is hurry up.
Yeah. Or don't get sloppy. Don't get sloppy with safeties.
I've done that a few times. So far, still got my hand.
Right.
What is some advice that you would give someone starting out that wants to be a full-time magician?
Easy. Look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself the question, is there anything in this world, in your life, that makes you happy other than magic? And if the answer is yes, do that. Because to be a magician is going to require so much dedication and sweat and blood and heart and pain, and forget about friends and forget about family and forget about social life and forget about money, and just that all goes away. And you're going to need to wake up every morning eating, sleeping, and breathing magic. That's all you can think about. That's all you can care about. Because as you're trying to succeed, right behind you, there are thousands of other guys just like you trying to do the same thing. So the competition is ridiculous. Even today, I wake up knowing that there's at least 300 people behind me working like hell to replace me. So it never ever stops. The pressure is crazy. The workload is crazy. It's a roller coaster. You're up, you're down. It is not constant. I was talking to my buddy Lu Chen a couple days ago. He was saying how a friend of ours, Cyril Takayama, he was having a hard time with COVID. So it's like, it doesn't matter where you are in your career, you are still very exposed, and you never stop hustling, you never stop working. It is a full-time life. And if that's what you want, then go for it. But it's not easy. So if there is anything else in this world that makes you happy, do that. And keep magic as a hobby.
Is there something that sticks out to you that you were told that was ever bad advice when you started?
Oh, that's a good question too. I'm holding my phone in my hand here, so I've got this kind of max headroom, which you wouldn't know, kind of look going on. Bad advice. Yes. But it's not something that anybody watching is going to be able to use. 10 or 11 years ago, I had the opportunity to do a television show in China that is seen by over 1 billion people. That's 1 billion with a B, right? Billion people.
It's crazy.
To put this into perspective, in the United States, I think the Super Bowl gets 70 million people. 70 million.
Wow.
Right? So this show, which is a New Year's Eve kind of festival variety show, billion people. So they said, we'd like you to do the show. And I said, great, let's do it. And then it turns out that they don't pay. In fact, I would have to pay. I would have had to pay about $5 to do this show. That would have been my production cost to do the show. So everybody around me said, no, that's not how it works. At this point in your career, you don't pay to perform, they pay you. So I said, okay, I didn't do it. So we didn't do it. Another magician did it. That magician's career skyrocketed, and they are now worth 50 million bucks, maybe more than that. So me not doing that cost me a ridiculous amount of money. Plus it stifled my career acceleration, because I couldn't wrap my head around the idea that I should pay to do a show. Didn't make sense. So that was the single worst advice I ever took, I would say.
That's interesting. Have you ever worked with animals in your show?
A lot. I used to work with a company called Marine World Africa USA, and we did a production called The Magic of Animals, and then it was changed to like Animal Kazam or some dorky name. But I've done a lot with animals, and what I've learned is I don't like working with animals. I don't dig it. I am working right now on a show which is also closed. It's shut down in China. It's called Ocean Dreams. And this show, I'm working with beluga whales, dolphins, sea lions, walruses, penguins. But the show is designed such so that the animals are not like circus animals. They're not just put on display, but I've designed it so it seems as though they are doing the magic.
That's
For example, I'm doing this kind of Max Maven-esque mind gamey thing where the audience believes that they can communicate with the dolphins. So there's a lot of mentalism going on, but I'm always empowering the animals. So I'm really proud of that. But the whole show is shut down. It's in a warehouse right now in Zhenjiang, China, waiting for Americans to be able to get back into the country.
Wow. If you're an unknown magician, is it better to sell your unique illusions or to use them in your own act?
Depends on what you want to be when you grow up. That's a weird question. Do you want to be a magician or do you want to be a magic designer?
That's true.
What do you want to be?
Both, I think, is idealistic for
Both?
me. But
Well, I haven't sold a lot of my stuff, mostly because I'm doing it myself.
yeah.
And I've had a lot of stuff ripped off, lots. But
With that logic, you might as well sell it. You would think, maybe.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So some of my stuff I've sold because I just couldn't beat it. Most of it I've been able to police, but I've had a lot ripped off. But I try to keep it for myself, just because the money that I would make selling it to me is not worth the amount of return that I would get doing it myself. But it depends on who you want to be.
All right. When you got started in magic to the current day, how do you think it's changed? Do you think the average magician is more skilled now?
Oh boy, these are really good questions. You got a donut for these questions. Oh boy, that's okay. This is another hour lecture,
Part two, no.
Two things have happened. One, because of the internet, pardon my picking my nose here. My nose has been itching the whole thing. Because of the internet, magic is more accessible to everybody. And it's easier to become a magician because all you need to do is go online, buy an origami, interlude, and cubezag, and you're done, right? So it's very easy to become certainly an illusionist because you just need to buy the stuff. Then you go online and you watch Chris Angel or Copperfield or the magician of the day, and you lift their act. And this is happening all the time. You create a website for yourself, and the next thing you know, you're a magician. And so there are hundreds of magicians out there that do not have skill, but they've got all the packaging that allows themselves to be sold to sell themselves as a magician. So the skill level in this medium has gone into the toilet. So there are many, many more guys out there. I say guys, but I'll also include a handful of women. But there are many more guys out there that should not be, because they do not have the skill. They don't understand what it even means to be an illusionist, to be a stage magician. They just bought the stuff and they did a shortcut. On the other hand, you look at Shin Lim and close-up guys that are absolutely changing the game. I'm not a close-up guy at all. I have the manipulative skills of a gibbon monkey. I have no ability below my wrist. But I appreciate close-up, and I look at people like Shin who have elevated it so high, and you look at what's going on, and so I think close-up magic and manipulation is far more advanced than it's ever been. And then on the flip side, you got a bunch of hack illusionists that should never be on a stage. So I don't know how to answer that question. You know?
All right. Now I know you've had your act stolen to some degree, but have you ever had
a bunch
physical props stolen?
Oh boy, yes, all that. Yes, all that. I've had props stolen, destroyed, copied. I've had them physically stolen. I've had the design stolen. I've had them trashed. We did a show about 5-6 years ago where the theater was not built yet, but they delivered the props. And so the people who were building the theater also delivered the props, and they treated the props the same as they treated all of the other building materials. So when we arrived at this giant construction site of mud because it was raining, I saw a pile, about a 10 or 15 story tall pile made up of my equipment. All of my road cases and costumes and electronics just in a giant mound in the rain, in the mud. And as this was happening, I watched a claw picking up another bunch of boxes from this flatbed truck and dropping it on top of this pile, because the workers were treating it just like construction material. So I had damage into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's painful just thinking about it. I've got video and pictures and all this. But we still have to contractually do a show. So, I've got hundreds of stories like this,
That's terrifying, actually. So, what's your least favorite act to perform?
You see, all these really messed up responses just race through my mind. All of them way too messed up to ever put on this program here. My least favorite act to perform: firing somebody.
Oh, okay. I have a story I might tell you after this.
There you go.
All right. What was the hardest thing you've had to learn, and what's the hardest to perform?
The hardest thing I've ever had to learn,
magic-wise.
Oh, okay, yeah. Don't spend more money than you got. That's a hard one to learn. Well, I failed, actually. I never learned it. It was too much. I couldn't do it. I was doing this thing in India a bunch of years ago. There's a famous trick called the Indian rope trick, where a magician puts a rope in a basket, and then the rope grows up tall, and then the little boy climbs the rope and disappears. So I thought, I'm going to do my version of it. I'm going to take a rope and I'm going to throw it out off of a roof of a building, and it's going to stand straight, almost like an erection. And then I'm going to tightrope walk out to the edge of this rope, which is standing all erect off the side of the building. So I came up with a method to make the rope throw out and stay there. But then, for the life of me, I could not tightrope walk on the rope. No. Plus, add to the fact that I'm afraid of heights. So I just could never get it together. So we spent a pile of money on it and engineered it, and then I never did it. So physically, that's the most difficult thing that I never did, crashed and burned. What was the other question?
Hardest to perform? Hardest to learn?
Hardest to perform? I am at a place in my career where if it's hard to perform, I don't do it. I've made everything so it's pretty easy.
It's the way to go.
It's like, what's the point? I feel like if I'm genuinely as good a designer as I'm telling people I am, I should be able to design illusions that are not difficult to perform, but look as though they are. So right now I can get through my 2-hour show without breaking a sweat if I want.
All right. Is there anything that people don't know about you, like a weird talent?
Yeah, I can do this. See if you can see this or not. Pretty good right there. Yeah.
All right.
I can do another one. Watch this. You can line it up in here. Here we go. There you go.
That's funny.
I'm glad I could share that with you.
Yeah. Only here. It's an exclusive.
You got one? Let's see it.
It would be hard to show you here, but I am like double, triple jointed.
Wow, that's pretty good.
So yeah,
that's pretty good.
It's hard to show in this small little square here.
Like a squid.
Yeah. So let's see here. Do you have any tricks to keep it fresh when you perform the same act so many times?
You can ask that of any married man. Let me think about that. No. I try to. That's a big thing with me, I freaking once I design something, once I do it, and even if it's a show, once the show is produced, I want to do it for like a couple months and then be done with it because I get bored, So I just hate having to do the same show over and over and over. I did a thing. I'm going to take a little path away from your question and then come back to the question. I did a thing a bunch of years ago. It was the first time that I was using a lot of animation in the show. And the whole show is basically a robot. Everything was automated. The stage, the lighting grid, the LED, everything was a big giant robot. And it was so automated that I was unable to change anything, which meant once I get on stage, I become one gear in this clock. And even though the show is massive and, people love you and, tens of thousands of people tell you how great you are, it became so boring after month number 3. I just dreaded going to that stadium. Oh my God, So I realized that more than anything, I love creating something new and putting it out there and then seeing what happens more than anything. I just have no interest in making the same donut every day. So to keep things interesting for me, I just really never repeat, for one. But if I do have to repeat, then I'm constantly changing and developing and figuring out how can I mess with it and try something new, and it just never stops. I remember, in fact, in this show I was telling you about, it got so boring for me after like month number 3 that I decided one day I would wear 2 microphones. One microphone out to the audience and a second microphone which was just going to a recorder. And I did a play-by-play commentary. I basically did a kind of magic lecture of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it live as I was doing the show.
That's
right. And then I put it out. It's out on, you can go to Murphy's Magic. It's called The Experiment. And so I put it out on Murphy's Magic, and it's a commentary, play-by-play, exactly what's happening and all of my motivations and what I'm thinking about. And I'm talking it through as I'm doing it. So I did that to keep myself entertained. And I've done a lot of other stuff like that to keep myself busy. But it's a big deal to me not to repeat, because if you're not enjoying it, then you better be making a pile of money. I mean, even if you're making a pile of money, figure out some way to enjoy it, because when you're dead, if all you've got is a bunch of pile of money, what's the point, you know?
So, do you have any crazy touring stories?
Do I have any crazy touring stories? Well, firstly, I would invite you to go back to Murphy's Magic or Penguin Magic and find The Illusion or The Reality of Illusion, which is a documentary we shot about 9 years ago, which shows you a ridiculous amount of stories. To answer that, I'm going to have to choose one of hundreds of stories. Why don't we make it easier? Why don't you give me a specific category or a specific element of touring, and I will give you a story about that, because otherwise we've got 1,000 stories.
Traveling on the road.
Traveling on the road.
Bruce Gold had made a comment about you shipping illusions around the country.
Sure. Well, traveling, I mean, we got shipping stories. I've done shows where none of the equipment has showed up. And I had to do an illusion show with nothing, which I'm really proud of. So I came up with, it was tough. This was for the Masters of Magic convention in Italy, and nothing showed up, but I had to do a half hour of illusions. So I did it all with fabric and chairs and ladders. Same thing happened in Russia, in St. Petersburg Arena. We were doing Missy Elliott for the Russian MTV Music Awards. And again, the container doesn't show up because there's a storm in the Atlantic. So I had to make Missy Elliott appear with no equipment. So I ran around the stadium collecting anything I could find that was silver, and ladders, trussing, chairs, aluminum poles, anything that was silver. And we taped it all together, zip tied it all together, and made this tower that stood about 25 feet tall. And then this sounds ridiculous, but I always carry with me a parachute, because if I've got a parachute and I'm in trouble, I know I can do something. I can make a car appear. I can do a lot of magic with just a big piece of fabric. So using my parachute and this giant tower that we built, I was able to make her appear at the start of the MTV Music Awards. And if you go to YouTube and look for Missy Elliott Russian MTV Music Awards, you will watch her appear at the start of her set in this thing that we made from nothing, just scavenging stuff around the back.
I'll try to link that down below.
Yeah, you can find it. Yep. I'm going to leave it at that, because I've got easily another 100 stories. But go check out The Reality of Illusion, Murphy's Magic. You'll have a great time. All right. I can send you a link. I can send you a link to the trailer, and you can do that.
And I'll post it below.
Perfect.
Like, if you had to put like a Mount Rushmore of magic, who would you say, like, 4 people in magic that would be the best performers?
Best performers. Luis de Matos, Topaz. Current guys? Current guys.
It could be all time.
Well, Copperfield kind of changed the game, you know?
Yeah.
What he's doing right now, it's not what he was. But in this, 20, 30 years ago, he really did change the game. And I got to find a 4th guy, huh? Maybe Harry Potter.
Okay. He definitely made a name for himself.
Yeah.
So, who would you say maybe the top people that you've learned from, if any?
Oh, Michael Jackson, no question.
Okay.
Learned production more than anything. Learned how to use all of your resources, the mediums. And then I've learned, the guys that I've learned from, you wouldn't know. A lot of production managers, from Alice Cooper's production manager, said something interesting. I was talking to him the whole show. We're deep in production. Everything's going crazy. And somebody from catering comes up to him and says something like, "We're out of lemons or out of limes for the tea maker, automatic tea maker. What would you like to do?" And so he stopped and paused and said, "Okay, well, we'll send somebody to go get some more limes," or whatever it was, something like that. And when the catering guy left, I looked at the production manager and I said, "You're dealing with millions and millions of dollars worth of logistics. You've got 200 people easily that you're coordinating. All of this is going on. How can you stop what you're doing and worry about lemon for the tea? And he told me, he goes something to the effect of, Franz, no matter who you're talking to, at that moment, whatever problem that person is bringing to you, that is the most important problem in their life at that moment. And you need to treat it as such, because to everyone, it's relevant, and we all have our own problems and our own concerns, and you can't diminish any one over the other. So it's really a lesson in treating everybody equally and with respect, regardless of where they are in this machine, And you try to do that, and sometimes you forget, but you try really hard to do that. That was a huge lesson that I've taken with me forever.
Do you have any other advice to the people listening at home, similar to that?
Oh boy, advice? If you mean for magicians?
Yeah, for magicians.
If you're a magician, firstly, be a good person, be ethical. Don't rip off anybody else. Don't copy anybody, because if you copy someone, you're not going to do yourself a favor, and you're not doing them a favor. You're never going to be successful being exactly like Chris Angel or Shin Lim or whoever, flavor of the month. You've got to figure out who you are and then be you and be unique. Unless you're doing something unique, it doesn't count. Michael Jackson told me, this was early on when we were really first started to hang out. He said, Franz, whatever you do it different and better than anybody before you. And I've lived with that. And I would give that to you. I would say, whatever you do, make sure it's different and better than anybody before. Because if you're not doing that, you're always you might hit a little bit of success, but it's gonna hit a plateau and you're not gonna go further. And above all, you got to enjoy yourself, because eventually you're dead. And when that happens, none of this matters anymore. So you've got to enjoy the ride and make as many people happy along the way.
Well said. So, talking to the beginner magicians out there, if they want to become the next Franz Harary, and right now they only have, let's say, $100 to start off.
Which is more. That's more than I had.
What should they do to create an act that will get them
For me, there was something called Victory Carton Illusions. I think you asked me a book I read. That's the other book. Victory Carton Illusions came out by Abbott's Magic. It was put out during World War II. And it shows how you can make illusions out of cardboard. So go find that. But there's so much stuff online right now. Just start experimenting. Just start playing around. Know you're going to fail, but just start doing it. You don't need money. You just need creativity and an audience. And start experimenting. And again, you've got an advantage that I didn't have, in that you've got the internet. So everything is out there, So start learning, start experimenting, and start failing, and just keep going.
Going off that, what's something that you've failed at that you learned from?
Something that I failed at that I learned from? Hundreds and hundreds of things. Boy, these are such open questions. Something that I failed at that I learned from. Well, once you learn, it's no longer a failure. It's whoever this is kind of a weird one, but it sort of applies. Again, that's just such a big open question, because every time you fail, you learn. So really the question is, what have you failed at? But what I've discovered is, when you work with somebody, and I didn't realize this. I guess I failed to realize this early on. When you work with somebody, regardless of what that person does, if they're the truck driver, or if they're moving your props, or if they're whatever it is, getting your donuts, you don't know where their life and career is going to go. I did a thing with I did the Janet Jackson Rhythm Nation tour. This is probably before you were born. So I did her Rhythm Nation tour, and the top guy on that production, 5 years later, he was like working for the caterer. It's like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. At the same time, a few years ago, I was doing the BET Awards, and I saw a guy backstage. His name's Leor Cohen. And Leor Cohen was my flunky. He was the guy who pushed around the cases for me for LL Cool J in 1986. So in 86, I did LL Cool J's tour, and he was the little punky guy who, it was his job to get the cases onto the truck, and he was like my gopher, right? So now I see him backstage at the then Kodak Theater in Hollywood, BET Awards, and I go, Leor Cohen? He goes, hey, Franz, good to see you. And he's all dressed nice, and I go, wow, Leo, it's been 34 years, 33 years? Man. And he goes, yeah, you still doing magic? And you go, yep, still doing illusions. I'm here. I was doing Usher. So I was doing, making Usher appear out of fire and what have you. He goes, oh, that's cool. It's good. It's a good gig. And I go, yeah, so Leor, what have you been doing? And he goes, oh, well, I work for Sony Music now. And I go, oh, really? What do you do? And he goes, I'm the CEO of the company.
Nice. So
this guy who was pushing cases around now is now the CEO of Sony Music, you know, bazillions of dollars and, you know, thousands of people under his command. And so you never know what's going to happen to people with whom you work. And that just goes back to respect everybody and don't burn any bridges, because you don't know how that the game is going to switch. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you don't know where you're going to be. You're going to be running into people who you've worked with in the past who are now in a very different position. And that took me a little while to figure out.
Interesting. So out of all the people you worked with, was there any of them that were maybe already into magic and had their own ideas?
Justin Timberlake, yeah, he was into it. In fact, Justin was more into the psychology, like myself, more into the psychology than the actual effect. He told me that he was working with the sound engineer who was experimenting with sound illusions, taking a sound and having it go up chromatically. And at the same time as it's going up in the chromatic scale, it's also going down. So you've got this chord, this cluster chord, and it's going up and down at the same time. And as you're listening to it, your brain doesn't know what to do with it. So it's this really weird effect. It's an audio effect. So he was already into illusions. Missy Elliott has done, so far, I think she's done like over 30 different illusions. That's more than most illusionists. You know, she always wants to do something new. Oh man, Franz, we can't repeat. We got to do something new. So she's into it, you know. And we've had stuff. Oh, here's going back to Missy. Russian Music Awards, where the equipment didn't show up. So I came up with this tower, and I thought, oh, I am a hero. I figured out how to save the day doing this with nothing, except for what happened is the next time she went out on tour, her manager goes, you know, instead of building something new, we want you to do for us what you did in Russia. Just come with your assistant and your wife and just make up something on the spot, because we're going to save a lot of money in cargo and in freight and in taxes. So it's like, oh my gosh. So I shot myself in the foot there. That took a couple more tours to get back to where I was, you know. Michael Jackson, he liked magic before I met him, which is probably one of the reasons that I met him in the first place.
So how many years did you work with Michael?
26.
Wow. How many illusions did he do over his career?
Well, he did a handful before me, and then together, that's a good question. I think we did like 8 or 9 or 10, maybe more. Well, you know, I designed this theater. I designed the theater in Neverland Ranch, and the thing was rigged from top to bottom. It had an Aga levitation in it and a bunch of vanishes and deceptive steps. So we probably did like 20 together, but a lot of them were just for his home, you know, not for stage.
So out of all the people you worked with, who were you the most excited to meet?
Well, also Jackson, because it's the first celebrity I ever met. And this was in 1984, and I might as well have been meeting Jesus Christ, you know. But then after what happens then is once you're into it, you kind of get over it. So now when I meet celebs,
Is there
maybe
anyone to this day that could still maybe make you a little nervous?
I saw Steven Spielberg. I saw him at a shopping mall a few years ago, and I'm a huge fan of his work. But I was just reduced to a blubbering little kid. I didn't even have the balls to walk up to him and say hi. I just kind of spied at him from a distance. I remember kind of pacing him about 20 feet behind him, just watching him walk. So that's pretty intimidating. Yeah, Spielberg.
All right, we only have a couple questions left.
Woohoo!
Yeah. What are some like bigger illusions that you would suggest to a beginner illusionist, and what's some that you would not recommend?
To a beginning illusionist?
Yes. If they're going to go out and buy something.
They're going to buy any suspension. A suspension is going to teach you showmanship. So get yourself a Super X or anything like that. You know, it's because to do a suspension or a levitation, that really requires a lot of thought process in staging and routining and acting, because you're acting, you know. Mm-hmm. There's some great stuff out there. You know, a cube zag is bulletproof. It's a perfect design. You know, it's small, it packs flat. I did 5-6 years ago at my place in Macau. Somebody had a cube zag on stage, and I told Danny and Stacy that I could do that without practicing. I could just go up on stage and just do it. So they were streaming live on Facebook, and they cornered me. And that's why I went up on stage, and I put Stacy Cole into the cube zag and did it without ever having touched one in my life. But the fact that I got through it without killing her is a testament to the beauty of the design of that thing. So it's a great trick. It's a bulletproof, and I think it's a good starter, and it will allow you as an illusionist to start figuring out who you are. Who are those three people that you are?
All right. And well, what would you suggest they don't start with?
Anything. Don't spend a lot of money. Don't spend a bunch of money. So don't start with anything that's going to cost a pile of money, because you're not good enough to spend that kind of money. You know, get good first. You know, that's really it. Simple stuff.
All right.
Just start with the simple stuff, and get a rhythm going, and then build your way up. You know, there's a lot of guys out there who have spent a ridiculous amount of money on a lot of toys, and they don't know what they're doing, and they don't have the showmanship or experience. Rich kids, you know, rich uncles, you know, so you're not going to get anywhere with that. So baby steps. At the same time, go out there and take some jazz class, some dance class, some improv class. Work on your showmanship skills, because those are going to be more valuable than the illusions.
All right. So we're getting towards the end here. If I was a neon green alien and you would have to describe your entire act to me, what would it be? What would be your description?
I get in front of a bunch of people and making it clear that I am no better than they are, I create the illusion of technologies that have not yet been invented.
Okay. And I'm going to ask you a question that typically you would ask at the end of your show. Fast forwarding 100 years, what is the legacy of Hans Harary? Or Franz
Harary? Hans Harary is a guy whose name is used for pizza ordering. And yeah, believe me, I should have changed my name like 30 years ago, 40 years ago. The legacy of Hans Harary. The legacy of Franz Harary. I would like to think that in fact, John Pullum asked me this a while ago. I'd like to be the Andy Warhol of magic. I would think that I in my day pushed the art forward, got the people of my day, and the magicians and artists of my day, to rethink what magic is as an art form, and made a whole pile of people happy along the way.
All right. We've reached the final segment where I'll ask you lightning quick questions to get to know you better as a human being. Are you ready?
Bring it on.
What's your favorite cereal?
Favorite cereal? Frosted Mini Wheats.
Favorite color?
Is there any other?
What's your favorite color?
Magenta and or 1960s swimming pool green.
Okay. Would you consider soup to be warm cereal or cereal to be just cold soup?
I think all soup is better cold, so I think it's all soup is cereal.
Okay. Favorite band?
Probably Elastic.
Okay. Apple or Android?
Apple or Android? Apple.
And this is a very important question to the internet. Does pineapple...
Then hold up. Then
What?
Can you do it in song?
I could.
I think you should. If this is the most important question.
I don't have my my auto-tune hooked up, unfortunately. Otherwise, normally I could. I'm not even gonna try.
I'm waiting. And by the way, if you edit this out, I'll know, and you'll be a pussy. So don't edit this out. I'll know. Me.
Hold on.
And a 5, 6, 7, 8.
Hold on.
No. You don't get production. Right.
Does pineapple... I can't even sing.
Does pineapple
belong on pizza?
Absolutely. Not just on pizza, but anywhere else you can slam it.
Okay. And finally, what is your pet peeve in magic?
Pet peeve? Piracy. More than a pet peeve. I loathe it. You know? Anybody who rips off someone else's illusions or magic should die on the side of the road in a pile of their own bile.
Now tell me how you really feel.
There you go.
Oh, man.
Elastic band.
Yeah. So, we're at the ending segment here. Is there anything
I thought we were at the ending segment like 10 minutes ago.
We have multiple ending segments here.
All right.
This is the final one.
All right.
Is there anything you want to advertise? Social media? Where can people find you? Any messages
can
for the
find
people
me-
watching at home?
This is like Hot Ones. You ever watch Hot Ones?
Yes.
Okay, so this is like this camera and that camera.
Uh-huh.
This is the only camera I've got. Go to my Facebook fan page, Franz Harary fan page. Oh, look, there's the graphic right there.
Yeah.
Look at that. FranzHarary.com. I don't think the fan page is on there. Oh, yeah. Facebook, Franz Harary fan page. We go live every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and then it lives there forever talking magic, and listen to me talking to my magic buddies from around the world, and give me a reason to get up out of bed every day and put on pants.
All right. And I'll link all that down below. Franz, thanks for being interrogated.
It has been a pleasure, although it didn't feel like an interrogation. I expected it to be a little bit more violent. I thought I would feel dirty by the time it was all done.
That's part 2 now.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Franz Harary, for joining me to get interrogated, and thank you to those who watched and wasted their time with all of us. If you'd like to suggest anything, leave it down in the comments below, or if you'd like to contact me for something,
follow the official travesty at Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or email him at theofficialtravesty@gmail.com.
Like, comment, and subscribe, or else.
My name is Franz Harary, and I've been interrogated.